thank you very much for having us today. Been doing the panel scene at EWTS for a couple years, and I wanted to reflect back just a little bit. The video that we opened up with today I thought was great. I don't believe that the question of ROI exists anymore. I think pretty much across the board, if you smartly approach wearables, whether you do it yourself, you work with a partner, you will get to success through an ROI. What is, I think, the question for a lot of folks and what makes EWTS particularly special is you have access to people who have done it. You have access to people who have touched the different parts of the journey, and one of the things you get through the panels, and we're the first of many over the next 2 days, is the perspectives of your peers, those who have done it before. And I'm very excited to have folks with household names from Walmart, from Bayer, from WestRock, JetBlue, and Porsche to share their experiences. So with that, I'd like to give the mic, since we're sharing them, to our panelists to give a quick intro of themselves. I'll then lead us through a round robin, and I'll make sure to save time for audience questions. But of course, the panelists will also be available later if you want to pick their brains one-on-one.
Awesome, thanks Brian. So my name is Riley Anderson. I am from Walmart. I'm a project manager on our innovations team, and I have been in this space for about a year.
Hi everybody, Mike Newsham. So I oversee learning systems and development at Bayer. So basically our learning infrastructure, learning ecosystem, everything that drives learning and development in the organization. And recently have moved into a HR consulting role where I'm getting the countries aligned with our global strategy across Bayer.
Good morning, everybody. Andy Kozak, manager of College of Technical Operations at JetBlue. I've been in the space for about a year and a half, and I run, besides doing all the maintenance training for JetBlue and our business partners, also run a very successful apprentice program, which we have tried to move the VRs into the VR space with our apprentices.
Good morning, I'm Scott Burkey. I'm the XR product lead for WestRock. We're a global paper and consumer packaging manufacturing company, and I work in emerging technologies. Before this, I used to put professional basketball games into headsets, and now I work with consumer packaging, which is even more interesting.
Thanks, Scott. My name is Doug House. I'm the manager of technical support for Porsche Cars North America. That's basically means from the technical side, anywhere that there's a problem in one of the 191 dealers in North America, we're responsible to provide them with support. We've been in the AR space now about 3.5 years, and we've learned a lot in the 3.5 years, probably equates maybe more to being in there somewhere 10 years with all of the things we learned early on, and even up until as late as yesterday, what we continue to learn in this space.
So having been in it for 10 years now, I know where all the gray hairs are coming from.
Exactly. I had hair when we started.
So I'm going to kick this off with Michael. Michael, you're in the first part of your journey, transforming one of the largest pharmaceutical agriculture companies in the world. And you said to me that in a lot of cases it's very hard for the strategic initiatives to rise above your tactical priorities, yet you have been tasked with changing the way a global company does its learning and training. How have you gotten support internally, and how have you broken through that kind of first layer of maybe tactical resistance to your strategic imperative?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So one eye-opening situation for me occurred. So actually my journey started at EWTS about 3 years ago when I got exposed to a lot of the opportunities and how far the technology had advanced and how it was actually being applied across business. So I went on a roadshow internally and took some of the concepts and just put them in front of people. Came up with some ideas on how we might build use cases to change our work. And from that actually sprung up a lot of discussion, which turned into what we call the Future Fridays session. So I organized every Friday, we would get together for 2 hours on one particular topic. Sometimes we'd bring vendors in, sometimes we'd have open discussion on how to really drive these things into the organization. So it took off pretty quickly, actually. There was a lot of appetite for it, so it was pretty exciting. one of the eye-openers for me was someone was asked by their manager to attend, and we were specifically looking at remote support from a video wearable. And the guy said, we can probably save $3 million a year next year if we're able to get this out into our workspace. But I don't have time to do it right now. And I was like, okay, can we get it started? He's like, how about we take a look at it next year or 2 years out? And I was like, you just told me we can save $2 to $3 million, and you don't have time to do it right now? So I think the learning thing for me there was, it started with him, it went through his manager, we reprioritized, and we were able to turn around quickly and get a pilot into place very quickly. So it wasn't stop there and look for a different route. It was, let's get the right people in the room and see if this is truly an advantage and value we want to capture today. Fast forward that the Future Fridays, actually, shortly after I kicked it up across the company, there was 2 competitions that were put into place to actually fund innovative projects across the organization. So my Future Friday session actually served as a feeder for those 2 competitions, and we had several people that started with the Future Friday session actually work through those competitions and get their projects funded and rolled out. So it was really exciting to kind of hop into that space and start from the ground up and have an impact.
So I think that's a great jumping off point. So you had an idea, found expertise that could implement it. We have actually 2 contrasting perspectives. One with Porsche, where you are experts in the problem-solving side of your automobile through your dealer network, but you brought in a new approach to making that process even better. And Scott from WestRock knew that they wanted to attack a handful of different problem cases, but they didn't have the external expertise. Went out and found an expert. Can you guys give me a little bit of a sense for how your organizations both succeeded with totally different problem solving?
Yeah, Brian, it's very interesting, and it's an interesting question because when we started being really straightforward with you, we didn't know what we were doing. We knew we had a problem. We recognized the problem. We had more sales volume and more vehicles in customers' hands than ever before. We had more requests for technical support than ever before. We didn't have, we really didn't have the manpower, the head count in place. And we knew that we weren't meeting the expectations. The Carlisle surveys and some of these things made that very clear to us. And so we were looking at ideas of what we could do, what we could to help. And in talking to the internal team, we weren't making any progress. And so an idea came from an innovation manager we had at the time to attend a conference much like you're attending today, sitting here, except it was in Atlanta. And I went to that conference not really knowing what to expect. My first introduction to wearables and to smart glasses was at that conference. And it took a few minutes before I had kind of an aha moment that this could come over into the technical support side. Everybody that introduced this to me showed me production. And that was very simple. But moving into the technical support side, and we began to talk to what is now our vendor, Ather, about how we could do that. They made some changes to help us with that. And so we started exploring this, and I think one of the keys, and I'm going to leave this part for Scott to talk about more, is that we took a very small approach first because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know much, but we knew that we were new in this space, and we knew that we needed to go slowly and try. What we ended up finding out was that the results exceeded our expectations. We didn't have any idea that we could have this level of success with it. And I'll talk more about that later, but with the quickness and the turnaround that we could solve technical problems, surprised us and exceeded our expectations. But I think the key for us was starting small and starting slow.
And I think it's
very opportunistic that you and I had an opportunity to meet this morning, because what happened with my experience at WestRock, when I showed up, I had a group, I had everything from people literally showing up to my desk saying, "Thank God you're here. We saw this super cool thing that Porsche did, and we want that. We want something like that. And so now I can say thank you for setting that bar for me to have to fulfill." But you're right, what they don't see is the work and the iterations that you went through. It's a testament to your talent and tenacity that you got to that point to where you're showcasing something to wow the executives at WestRock. And so I had everything from, thank goodness you're here, Scott, we've got a big budget, we've got a big appetite, we've got real immediate needs, all the way down to the other end of the spectrum that I've found, which are unfortunately sometimes where folks within our company say, "That's something my kids play video games on, you're not going to put that in my factory." Fortunately, I hear more of the former than the latter. But really what I've seen in the last few months, I'm in my first 6 months at WestRock, what I've seen is I see these pockets of well-meaning, forward-thinking professionals within our company, in our factories, in our mills, in our offices, that have taken the initiative to start doing something. And they're in different levels of success, or I won't say failure because I'm going to help them out, right? But I see these different pockets of implementation or even prototypes. And what I've been tasked with doing is coming in from the outside, is taking a look at everything from the "thank goodness you're here" to the "no, go away, we're not interested," and meeting with them and talking to them about what that real ROI is, and the technology appetite and interest of their younger workforce, and even of their aging workforce. We see good implementations happening in our factories with guys 60 and up. They're interested. They're probably tired of looking at that same piece of machinery they've been looking at for the last 30 years, and they're interested in new technologies. And so I'm proud to be where I am. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to have these different conversations with folks in different parts of our organization with different levels of interest or appetite.
I think what we've heard from you guys from the time we've spoken is you've added a lot of structure around the idea. I think the concept is something that is easy to grasp. The actual implementation of it needs somebody to shepherd it through, which couldn't be more true in, say, a regulated industry like aviation, which leads me to Andy. So real quick, audience participation. Who's flown JetBlue in the last year? Andy, appreciate your business. No matter, I'm sure most of us flew in here, who's been delayed on a flight for mechanical issues in the last year? More than once? None yet, right? Of course, because of his implementation of new training technology, I'm sure. So I wanted to talk about, you're applying VR wearables into your training process to revolutionize, in some sense, the access to real-life experiences. Can you give us a sense for how that's transformed your operations?
Yeah, sure. So typically, the way that we conduct training is we'll have a student come through, runs through about 80 hours of theoretical training, and then we parlay that in with 40 hours of OJT. Our problem is that I don't own an airplane in the training department, so I have a problem sometimes, depending on where I am and what the operation is going through, that I can get access to my OJT training. So about a year and a half ago, we did a Shark Tank at JetBlue, and we were looking for different innovative ways to just kind of bolster our training department. And I was not a gamer. So the VR space was extremely new to me. A business partner that we're currently working with put me in the goggles, and I literally stood there on stage with my mouth open. And it was, we worked with Shriver, and Derek showed me a scenario of a quarterback in huddle, and I just did the 360 degree around the stadium, and he kept need to close your mouth. And we went through the whole scenario, but in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I can now do all my OJT training in the classroom, or at least a large piece of it, and I don't get stuck with waiting for airplanes or weather conditions or things like that. So that was one piece. And like I said, I run a very successful apprentice program in Boston and JFK, and a lot of my apprentices are like 27 and younger. And I would say the majority of those, 70-75%, are gamers. Well, now I'm kind of taking something that they have a passion for, but now I'm bringing it into their work environment. So they grasp it. And now even the older folks are really grasping it as well. So I think it's been a big game changer for us. I think our struggle right now, though, is the next step. I think what we're stuck in right now is that proof of concept purgatory, where we've done a really successful proof of concept, got some great data behind it. Now I'm in the sales pitch of how do I move this forward and get a little bit more money behind this so that I can go out and continually improve my training, but also not just improve training, but help the operation with problems. So the problems being, in the airline world, we have a maintenance delay. And let's say if we have a certain problem that may cause us 500 hours worth of delays a year, which is a massive number, because every hour an airplane sits on the ground is a lot of money. But I always preach out to senior leadership and the CFO that if I can narrow that down in the first year from 500 hours down to 250 hours, there's the ROI right there. Now put your airplanes back in your operation, and we've done this through training.
I can't wait until there's no more flight delays.
Me too. It's always a training issue, right?
And we've seen this on the other side. We do a lot of work with aerospace, and we're seeing the augmented reality side bleed into not the on-the-job training, but the actual on-the-job maintenance procedures. And this is, MRO is moving to a $120 billion industry, maintenance, readiness, and overhaul. So we expect over the next couple of years this to be something that does improve sort of industry-wide. You also said something before that I wanted to just touch on real quick. It's opening up access to better hire in the pipeline because you have the differentiating technology, which is something I think, if you guys haven't thought of, we are hearing this more and more, that not just preserving knowledge of your current workforce, but it is an expectation of the incoming workforce now. So I'll parlay that into the largest private workforce in the United States. Riley represents Walmart, and I'll just realize I have your mic. So every part of your business, from IT to operations to training, is a small army. Do you do anything without thinking through the scale impact first?
Yeah, so I think that's a good point with the Army portion of it. I like to think of Walmart as a big ship, and every department and organization we have within Walmart, we have to think about communication. So if you want to turn your ship, you can't do that just with the captain. You have to do that with the people below deck. You have to do that with the people who are helping the other people succeed in their areas. And that's what Walmart is really great at. So we don't do anything within the organization without making sure people are aligned, communication is on point, we've socialized, and it's good for the customer. Our customer is the most important part of the organization, and so it has to align with our vision. And so I think that the communication is the number one thing to get us through there.
I mean, Walmart has become a bit of an innovation powerhouse over the last couple of years. We're seeing, as consumers, more and more of that bleeding into the customer experience. We're seeing advertising about it. How do you expect this technology, both AR, like you've been very public with your VR applications, to start impacting a very broad set of the population over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I think that within Walmart, we look at the overall organization and how it's going to benefit us and benefit the customer mainly. So if it's improving the customer's ability to get in the store, get the product, and get out quickly, while enabling our associates to get the job done efficiently enough to make sure that our customers are getting that product as fast as they can and making their lives easier, then we'll definitely be looking at that.
That's great. So one thing that Riley touched on was thinking through the impacts across the organization. So if you were, say, for instance, on the operations side, you have counterparts in IT. Have you guys all found that to be a key part of your success working with the counterparts on the other side of the organization in order to bring it up to the point where it can start scaling?
For me, that's all I do, actually. I feel like my role is kind of morphed into connecting people and connecting technology to solve the problem. So that's it. That's my job.
Yeah, I think the same for us is that, we're trying to show for the training organization, we're trying to help our operation counterparts utilize technology to make their job easier. Technology is there to do that, and instead of working harder, let's just work smarter.
My 5-year-old today, or yesterday, asked me, Dad, what is technology? And I'm like, how do I describe this? Like, it's just so in every aspect of our life, but like within the business world, it's certainly like, you have your information systems groups, you have your IT groups, they're all really critical stakeholders to digital transformation. Doug, one thing, so you've actually had your use case, which is remote support to your global or North American franchisees that bear the Porsche brand, in action for a while. You've had plenty of time to get KPIs back. Have you seen that come back around and add more fuel back into the hunger to apply this in other spaces? Has those KPIs backed up your original thesis?
Yeah, Brian, it's a great question. And as strange as this will sound, it's a little bit of a complicated question. What we found, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that the success was more than we expected, was better than we expected. When you take a situation in a technical support world that without AR was taking 16, 17 days to resolve, that means, and I think most everybody in this room can relate, you own a car. Doesn't matter if it's a Porsche or what it is, but to have your car down for 16 or 17 days while somebody's trying to figure out some procedure on that is annoying, and that's problematic. But in the augmented reality world, we found that in one of those cases, and we have found this actually in many cases now, that we were able to resolve that with a remote expert in 7 minutes. So if you're talking about 17 days versus 7 minutes, the ROI discussion becomes pretty short, and the customer satisfaction discussion becomes pretty short. And so then we can start to get this pushed down from a higher executive level, from our CEO into the ownership of the franchises, and then push it down, because we met in some resistance in that middle management area, in the service management area. And when we began to share what we saw for the KPIs, that was met with a lot of skepticism. And a lot of our service managers said, there's no way you're saving up to 40% of time on these tickets with AR. We were being a little bit cautious, because some cases it was better, some cases it was not 40%. But the example I just gave you is really indicative of what we saw, not only in the pilot, but as we rolled out the full implementation, is that we saw cases that were taking 16, 17 days and greater, to be real frank in this room, greater. And we could see those cases resolved in a few minutes with augmented reality.
Just a quick question for the audience. How many of you have not yet gotten feedback from your hands-on workforce as to what wearables are like? How many are waiting for that? Everybody's gotten feedback. Let me spin my next question slightly then. So Riley, you have deployed across Walmart tens of thousands of AR headsets. You have done untold hours in the AR headsets. But your workforce touches every geography, every demographic in the U.S. and around the world. What have you seen successful in setting up expectations on the front end to get more buy-in through the process, sort of overcoming some of that initial resistance? like you shared some pretty interesting techniques within some earlier calls.
Yeah, so this technology is obviously new. We have a lot of associates and customers out there, so we're implementing something like this into our stores or into our organization just in general. We really like to come at it as it's exciting, but it's not overwhelming. It's a practical new tool that they are using for their job. Just as you would implement, you know, a new handheld or a new iPhone, whatever it is, it's just a new piece of technology that we are there to help make your job more efficient and successful. And the customers really appreciate that from what we've seen. Our associates appreciate it as well. We've seen success from our front end. Instead of having your registers down for 2 days waiting for a technician to come out, they've been able to go on Google Maps or use the augmented reality to knock that out in about 10 minutes, which then makes our lives and our associates easier because the customers aren't angry with, you know, a register down, they make time. So making sure that they see the benefit of it and know that it's there to help them. That's just the reassurance of it.
You told me a story once where you had a technician who looked at the device and I don't know if I'm going to wear that. And you're like, do you like football? They're like, yes. And you're like, great, put it on. You look like the football coach with the Motorola style.
Yes,
so
yes.
Like, all right, yeah, I'm into that. I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I want to turn it over to the audience. Does anyone in the audience have a question for our esteemed panelists? I can't see you guys, so if there's a microphone.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have a question. Anyone?
Porsche. I think I see you.
All right.
Hello, my name's John Harrison from Panasonic. And one of the questions that we get asked internally is about the device utilisation. You know, ROI calculators talk about training, access to information, and stuff, but then a lot of people say, how many times does it get left on the bench? It's not being used. How do you measure that?
So I'll take this from a Walmart perspective. So we try to make that their main use. That's their equipment that they use every day. It becomes a routine. At first, you're going to have those up and downs just because that's how it is. But we really try to emphasize that this is, you know, something that we want to test. Our associates like to be a part of innovation, and they want to, you know, feel the home office and have us be part of something. So for us, we make it a big deal that they are a part of helping Walmart transformation, and that really drives the adaptability of this is mine. My ownership, this is my piece of equipment, and my voice matters.
When we get another hands up on why the microphones are being run, like I can speak from our perspective, depending on the role you see, you have some people that are using wearables as exception-based tools, so their job is to live in a cabinet and be charged. And when you have a problem, they become a tool to fix it faster. There's also roles where you're looking at all day, every day use, 8 hours a day, the associates wearing the glasses to do their job better, and it becomes part of their kit.
Right here.
Fire away.
Where's this one?
Hi everyone, my name is Gize Banyas. I'm with Johnson & Johnson. My question is for Riley. So in a large and global organization like Walmart, how do you communicate AR and VR across the organization to ensure alignment and make sure that, you know, different organizations within Walmart are implementing the solution that you guys are working on and people aren't doing siloed and different, you know, AR solutions? So I'd like to hear more about that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Within Walmart, obviously you can imagine, I'm not the only person doing AR, VR in the company. And so our leadership does a really great job of making sure that all of the organizations that do touch this area, we bring it together and we look at it as a whole. So if it's not going to benefit my area per se in real estate specifically, it might benefit our OGP area, things like that. For the stores, we have so many teams at Walmart that specialize in having those relationships with our stores, building the relationships, and then pushing that out in communication through many different platforms that makes it so successful that our stores want to hear from us. And so they've just created that channel. Hiccups do happen just because we are so large, but we really try to hear from leadership. They kind of take that over and make sure that the stores know that they're behind it.
Okay, so a question here, Sasha. My name is Sasha. I'm with Tetra Pak. A question to the panelists. With using augmented reality and these wearables for remote support type applications, what is your experience in setting up the back end of it, right? So the experts available 24/7 and being able to set up, support the front line or people that need support through augmented reality and or wearables. And what's your experience in kind of scaling up that as well across your enterprise? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say, so at WestRock, that was a big thing for us, is when I went out and started talking to frontline workers, and I asked them when do they need support, I heard a resounding message of, it's 3 a.m., I'm on that third shift, I forgot how to do something, or I broke something, and if I have to call my boss into the office, right, or if I have to wake someone up, or if I have to engage a vendor at this time of the morning, that's trouble for me, as it were. So the approach that we've taken is working with internal experts, and they're much happier to be able to jump on a handheld device or on a computer and help out a worker and then go back to sleep or go back to the beach without having to drive in or travel in. And so it's been a real good first step in for us in manufacturing, that remote remote assistance. And then we have started moving out into having third-party vendors, external support for bigger initiatives. But really we found that everyone involved is just so happy to not have to drive in or leave vacation to come help that frontline worker. That remote expert, the remote assistance, has been really well received.
All right, so I think that's time for us. If you could join me in a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming.